Even if my county is benefiting, it is ridiculous to see that the other counties are losing colossal amount of resources.
Senators Paul Githiomi, Dr. Abdullahi Ali, and Ledama Olekina had proposed alternative methods to share revenue, which were to be debated in the special sitting.
This formula has been very divisive, to say the least. But looking at the amendments casually, they are equally divisive.
Consequences whereby we are going to entrench the marginalization that has affected this country for decades, if not for more than a century. Those consequences will live for them for the next century or more. The only thing that helped this country to manage its politics and its affairs for a while is devolution.
These are very, very emotive issues that requires us to be able to internalize what it means by sharing revenue.
The first basis for sharing revenue was approved on 27 November 2012 and was used to share revenue among counties for 4 financial years. The second formula was adopted by Parliament on 21 June 2016 and has been used in the last 3 financial years. The third basis that is now ready for consideration was tabled in the Senate on 30th April 2019 and has also been dogged with controversy, just like the previous methods. 18 counties stand to lose up to 17 billion shillings if adopted and applied in the current financial year.
The same sword that will be used to deny any county even a shilling of what it got last year can be the sword that will be used someday in future by a national government that hates devolution to slash money from each and every county.
Let us not create this narrative of losers and winners. The winners must be the people of Kenya. The winners must be devolution.
I would urge senators kindly, once we adjourn, please take time, you look at various options. You look at various parameters. For instance, there is the issue concerning the commencement date. I have seen some are proposing we commence immediately. Others are proposing we give it, let's say, 1 year or 2 years. We look at various other issues.
Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
This is a good time for us to continue the engagement, and so that maybe.
And that is the Senate Majority Chief with Senator Irungu Kang'ata, who's joining us in studio this morning. Good morning, sir. As well as nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura, who's joining us via Zoom, who will be giving us his sentiments on those developments and what he thinks. And I'll start with on a very simple note. We've heard the story from Patrick Amimo telling us about the sentiments for those, particularly from those who are against this particular revenue allocation formula. One has simply put it that it is bad. Why are we at this point, and why is this a proposal if from the figures that we've seen in various reports, you're having certain counties winning and others losing, and basically the consensus is that all counties need revenue, and if some are going to be winners, it should not be at the cost of other counties. I'll start with you, Senator Kang'ata.
I think there are 2 reasons which is causing jittery among senators. The idea is that some counties will lose money this financial year. And secondly, the very reason that the national government did not devolve more funds to the county government, and therefore we do not have any money to cushion the losing counties.
Okay. And what informs this lack of funds? Because we expect that they should be at least as reserve, or at least some way, forward-thinking way of approaching this particular subject so that nobody is on the losing side.
Yeah, of course, we have had problems to do with the under-collection of taxes in Kenya as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But even barring that, we had other fiscal problems that made the national government be unable to devolve more funds to the counties. Be that as it may, there was a good proposal, which I proposed that we may pass the formula, but instead of commencement date being this financial year, we put it off with at least 1 year. For me, I thought that was a reasonable idea, because that then would have meant 2 things. One, we do not have losing or gaining counties this financial year, and therefore things would have been good. And secondly, We also hope next financial year we shall be able to add more money because it appears BBI will come and will propose that we devolve more funds. Once that happens, then there'll be a cushion. There'll be no losing counties as such.
Yes, and before I get to Senator Maura's, sentiments on this particular revenue allocation formula, I would like to know from your view, you're saying that you would have rather it be pushed forward. How then would the budgetary allocations look like for the counties? Would it be like a flat rate and then that would be topped up in the coming financial year, or how would this be actually made to ensure that even if it is not enough right now, it will be in the coming future?
No, the status quo would have obtained.
The current revenue? Yeah, okay.
Take, for instance, if Nairobi receives about 10 billion, it receives 10 billion this year. If Mandera County receives about 11 billion this financial year, it receives 11 billion this year. So meaning you then say, okay, next year, that's when we shall have changes.
Okay.
You then hope within 1 year, you will either have gotten more money from Treasury or you could have maneuvered a situation where you have devoted more function to the counties and therefore no one loses. For me, I had thought that was a fairer idea. I'm still not sure why some counties, some senators have not agreed to that idea.
Okay.
Of course, I've seen others who are challenging the mechanics of the formula.
Okay.
They say, okay, fine, that's a good suggestion, but we feel the formula itself is unfair, and therefore, even if we shall get, let's say, 1 year cushion, as long as the parameters and the mechanics of the formula remain as proposed by the committee, they are still uncomfortable with the formula.
As it is. Now, let's bring in Senator Isaac Maura, who's joining us via Zoom. Senator, what was your reaction to this revenue allocation formula with those winners and losers coming out quite loudly and meeting protests from fellow senators? What did you feel when you saw that, and how has your county in particular been affected if this actually is brought to fruition?
Thank you. The issue is we have a systemic perennial challenge, and it is historical. It's not even starting now, between the populous communities and the less populous communities, and between old form of marginalization and a new form of marginalization. I have been the vice chairman of that committee. And also, I have been involved a lot in trying to come up with a solution to this problem. And let me tell you, no matter how long you take, a decision has to be made. In fact, I want to say senators must rise to the occasion to make a decision on this issue. We cannot keep on perambulating about it for years. We have delayed making a decision for the last 1 year. And even if we delay for 3 years, it will not resolve itself. We have to make a decision. And the best way to resolve this issue, if you want it to be that way, is to share the money equally. And that will be quite unfair. That's when we can say monies are done. But you cannot have, for example, the whole of Northeastern region with 2.5 million people getting over 25 billion and more, and you have Kiambu County, where I come from, with 2.4 million people, 2,417,000 people, getting 9 billion. I mean, it's totally unacceptable.
Right.
And I think it's not fair. You give money to people, even in a home. You cook ugali based on the number of people in the family. You don't start saying that now because this and that. No. And if we are to look at the per capita allocation, you find a county like Lamu, people are getting 21,000, against the population. A county like Kiambu, you're getting 3,800. Is that really acceptable?
Right.
When you look at Nairobi County with 4.4 million people, and they are getting less money, comparatively. Remember, yes, we can address historical marginalization. These counties already have CDF, and they get more CDF than the others. There's an equalization fund, which is also their fund. And then further to that, when you look at even the allocations that are being divided, for example, the number of money, the amount of money given to students when they're going to school. In my place, like in Roiro constituency, you can barely give 2,000 shillings for bursary. Okay. There you can even have 50, 70,000 people shillings per person. I mean, is that really fair? You know, you cannot create a new form of marginalization by saying you discriminate people. Like yesterday, there was one senator who was saying, "Oh, you people, because you are having many people, you should do family planning." But how reckless can individuals be?
Yes,
how
indeed.
reckless can people be? Because if you look at, for example, a county like Bungoma County, there are 1.6 million Kenyans. Look at Kakamega County. Look at even the number of constituencies. You see, people who have 2.5 million people, they have 18 constituencies. People who have 2.4 million people in Kiambu County, they have 12 constituencies. Is that fair? The same case with Kakamega. The same case if you look in Kisumu. So we must speak truth to power. If you look at, for example, Kilifi and Kiambu County, Kilifi has got 1.4 million people. They get more money than Kiambu, which has got 2.4 million people. So, I mean, tuambiane ukweli hapa.
Right.
We cannot continue creating new forms of marginalization ostensibly by addressing all forms of marginalization. We cannot do.
Yes. So, Senator Mwaura, what you talk about are things that are tangible. There are figures you can see. You can have experts who can tabulate and see how rightly these things can be sorted out, ironed out. What then is standing in the way of addressing these historical forms of injustices and marginalization and ensuring that everything is done fairly, honestly, because you sit on that committee, you have seen it, and I'm sure there are other people, your colleagues, who have seen it. So what stands in the way?
No, I'm no longer a member of that committee. I used to
Yes, the former one, but you would have addressed this given that you are knowledgeable, right?
The issue is because people want to play politics. You know, people are trying to play politics of 2022 with the formula. And let me say this, then the numbers don't count.
Right.
Because if people are going to play politics because of top-up numbers, you disfranchise your core support base because of top-up numbers.
Okay.
I think leaders are being unfair to themselves. Because when you have a county that you cannot run because you don't have adequate resources, then it's not I mean, you're actually selling your birthright to people at the altar of political expediency. And I want to say this. When I have been traveling around and giving people food and visiting people's homes, people are in abject poverty. People are living in squalor. I remember, going into a house where there are 12 people in one single room, less than 10 feet by 10 feet. Others don't even have houses. They have gone to hospitals where there are no basic things like sanitizers or, because the demand is very high, you see. So basically, you cannot tell us here that because you have a huge landmass, that then you should get all of the money, and yet all of this money is coming back to be utilized in the silly economy. I mean, that is not acceptable. We know governors are stealing money left, right, and center. But please let us put our money where our mouths are, and let us not try to play 2022 politics with this all too important issue. Let monies be shared, based on the population. You can give a little money on landmass, but also counties need to be incentivized to collect more on-source revenue, so that also we cannot have counties whose role is to take taxes paid by residents of other counties, and they get a bigger share than the others. Get your rightful share. Yes, you have not been getting it over time.
Yes.
You've been getting it for the last 7 years. Also account for what you've been able to do, but also do not take a share that is meant for other people simply because you want to talk about equity. Equity cannot be only when you are benefiting. When others are also getting the rightful share, you complain.
All right. Now, Senator Kangata, Honorable Mwaura has talked about those historical injustices, and you have said you would feel comfortable if this was pushed forward downwards along maybe to next year when things are better. But then he has pointed out some very critical issues such as the historical injustices and the forms of disparities that are meted on people based on their political girth that they will actually contribute to the 2022 political implications for whoever is running for office. So what would you say to that? Because if that is the current formula is not serving the people well, it doesn't even matter that the new one is not good.
Well, I think here every senator is pushing his own agenda, rightfully, by the way, because of course you are elected by senators from by residents of a certain county. You represent their interest, and therefore once you go to the plenary, you need to champion their selfish interest. I say that because, of course, I understand those who come from populous region. They feel that the current formula is skewed, But on the other hand, there are those who come from less populated region, but they have huge land size. They feel that their regions have been historically been marginalized.
Right.
We also know the political evolution of this country. There has been a schism between the so-called big tribes versus the small tribes. Remember, during independence politics, KANU was a party that was viewed as representing the interests of the big communities. KADU was now the political party that was viewed as representing the interests of the small groups.
Yes.
So it is a fairly emotive issue, and those of us who are in leadership, what we would want is to carry everyone along, taking into account every senator has to push the interest of his people. But at the end of the day, we are one Senate. We also are leaders of the nation. We are not leaders for a segmented society.
Right.
I would imagine one becomes a leader, you are given these positions of trust to serve every part of this country. And therefore, in a way, we must take into account all those problems and see whether you can come up with a good settlement. The only issue I have with some of my colleagues, and I would urge them probably to assist us, those of us in leadership, it is good to criticize a certain formula, but don't stop there. Give us a solution.
Okay.
Give us a proposal. I like, of course, the committee did a good job. They came up with a proposal. Of course, Ole Kina, Senator for Narok, was not happy with that proposal. He came up with his alternative proposal. Also, Dr. Ali, Senator for Wajir. Yeah, for me, I think now we are progressing. We are not just talking or saying or criticizing proposals. We are now saying, okay, why can't you consider this idea of mine? If we were to reach such kind of settlement or a trajectory, I think we shall be moving one step towards coming up with a compromise, as opposed to just saying, okay, I have a problem with this, I have a problem with this, without at least giving us
being
a way
apart.
forward.
So it is actually permissible. I think that's one thing that a lot of people, I'm sure even watching at home, do not know, that the senators can actually, outside the bounds of the committee, come up with possible solutions, right?
No, we told them. In fact, when we started this discussion, people had this notion as if the committee proposal is a zero-sum game. And over the weekend, we held a small parliamentary group of Jubilee Party. And one thing we told the senators is that, no, we have decided now to open it up, people to bring their proposals. In fact, if you look at the proceedings from Friday up to yesterday, they were a little bit calmer in comparison to how things were going on previously. Meaning, we need to continue urging more senators to come up with their options. That way, maybe you will find one senator coming up with what I can call a silver bullet. In fact, the reason why we decided to adjourn the proceeding is because someone said he has a very good idea. He thinks that we need to come up with an amendment that says, yes, we pass the formula, but it will only take into account or effect once the government is able to devolve more funds.
Okay.
To me, that's progress. And if I would urge my colleagues to move towards offering solutions.
Now, Senator Mwaura, do you feel as though the devolving of more funds to a larger percentage would be the answer to some of these problems that you have highlighted when we spoke in your comments a few minutes earlier?
Yeah, I think that is the case because if we were to allocate the counties 350 billion, then that would not, the challenge we are having now would not arise. Having been in the budget committee, both in the National Assembly and being the vice chair in the Senate,
yes,
I can tell you for sure there is a serious cash crunch in government. In fact, we don't even know whether in the next financial year we will allocate counties 200 billion, for example, because we are living in austere times. We cannot just continue to say we have more money, we don't have the money. Even our debt needs to be rescheduled so that then you are able to allocate more monies to counties and also to national government. Now, if, for example, this were to be caught up in the BBI, debates, and we devolve 35% of the monies, then it would be a huge, resource,
yes.
To our people. But certainly, I would want to submit that it is true that the national government is getting its unfair share of ordinary shareable revenue. And because out of a budget of nearly 3 trillion shillings, you're only giving counties 316 billion. And we as senators had actually pushed for more money. The people who backed out on us were the governors. I mean, they betrayed the cause, actually. So even now when we are trying to divide monies amongst the counties, they are the ones who brought this problem, because we should have stuck to our guns and ensure that we have more money to counties.
Now, Senator Mwaura, before you continue, I'd like to then pose to you the question that, don't you think it would be justifiable on the part of the national government, because not all the functions have been successfully devolved, and therefore that would inform them not being able to devolve more funds to the county level?
No, it's the holding up, actually. In fact, that's the other problem. Because then when you have monies that are supposed to be in devolution, they are the Ministry of Health, for example, they are the Ministry of Agriculture, then you have duplication, and that increases the cost of government and the size of government. I think there was no let-up in terms of this, perennial propensity of public servants in empire building, trying to forestall any forms of change. And I think that is what we need to do, because of this issue of COVID-19, we need to do what you call fiscal consolidation, and budget restructuring. But also remember, there is what we use in budgeting. It's called the principle of subsidiarity, where you budget from the lowest level. But when you budget in rooftops and in high air-conditioned offices in Nairobi, you actually do not have the felt needs on the ground. Now, even at the counties, you also need to do further devolution so that you have a mixture of both big projects and small projects. Big transformational projects, and there's a very strong case of even counties being brought together, like in Mount Kenya region, we have the Central Region Economic Bloc, and you can have other blocks, so that then you harness the opportunities that are there in terms of mega projects. But also, people at the wards level, they need boreholes, they need, maram roads, they also need, the cattle dip to be repaired. Those kind of things.
Yes.
You have to have a mix. So it is a question of ensuring that there is strategic leadership, both at the national level, and there's also co-sharing of resources. But otherwise, as things stand by, you have a lot of money also that goes to government through what they call national interest. But if it was properly shared, then you would also argue that even devolved governments or county governments are able to implement national policy, for example. So how then do you make sure that you give more money? But because we reduced our equitable share to 316 billion, it is the same amount of money that was there for last year. Then you remember the money allocated this year becomes the base for next year. So that becomes an issue. And then when you introduce COVID-19, equation, you may reduce this further. That would mean that even the current disparity that we have, will be greater amongst counties. And also further to this, I must also emphasize that it is high time that we allocated at least 5% of all money is going to counties to support women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So that, because we are not seeing counties also having proper programs for them, so that they can also benefit. But otherwise, it's good to allocate monies to where people are. And for me, Kiambu County, the CRA proposed that we get nearly 1.3 billion shillings. I believe we need to get that kind of money so that we can be able to resolve some of the systemic challenges that are facing the great people of Kiambu County.
Okay, Senator Kangata, what are your sentiments on his solutions or his proposals to how we should move forward with this? And at the same time, do you agree that then, as I would imagine, that now the issue would be ensuring that devolution happens fully so that we can actually be able to achieve that dream of having funds devolving to the very lowest of the low at the county level, and ensuring things such as cattle dip, as the Senator has put it, are actually funded?
Yeah, I agree that with the sentiments that we need to change our approach in budget making at the county level, more public participation, more direct democratic practices, and also the idea that we need to involve the locals when you're coming up with the budgets, and to that, for me, it makes sense. Also, I agree with his sentiments that the kind of money we are devolving to the counties, from where I see it, is not enough, because we are only devolving about 316 billion in a huge budget.
What would be the ideal percentage of the national, allocation?
Well, I cannot really come up with a specific amount or even percentage to say, okay, this is the ideal situation.
Yeah.
Maybe the conversation should be, should we devolve more functions or not? I think we may need to consider devolving more functions, because you cannot just send money just for the sake of it. Money needs to be accompanied by functions. And therefore, if we devolve, let's say, another function, definitely money will increase at the county level.
Okay, and let's talk about how the BBI plays into all this. Does it bode any hope for the counties having more revenues allocated to them?
Yes, indeed. There is a proposal to devolve more funds. And so I think I saw a proposal of about 40% of the entire amounts of money that we collect nationally. The only thing they did not identify is which function are they proposing that we devolved. Because I'm not so sure whether they are proposing that the current fourth schedule that devolves or divides the kind of functions that are going to go to the counties, they remain as they are. So maybe they are proposing just an incremental increase of the money that so far goes to there without adding more functions. I doubt whether that can be a good idea. I think the best case scenario would be to consider one of those functions that currently are in the hands of the national government to go to the counties. But it makes a lot of sense. And I think BBI offers a potential solution to even these stalemates we are having currently in the Senate.
Okay, now as you feel that, you have said earlier on that you would feel that it would be better off to just postpone the whole thing. And also we know that we are looking at a potential situation where we will have the BBI actualized. Do you think your hope would be staked on that, so that to ensure that now we are having these problems solved in terms of revenue allocations if the BBI is actualized in the next, let's say, year or so, and hopefully we do not have the problems, the other factors of COVID-19 and other issues that are affecting our economy?
Point of correction, I'm not proposing we postpone anything.
Yes.
You know, you can pass a law today, but the effective date is pushed forward. So that's what we are processing.
So we could decide, make our decisions today, but in a view that this would come into effect, let's say, in the
exactly.
next
So meaning,
year.
you know, even laws, more often than not, people usually pass them, but they say effective date is, let's say, 2 years from today, 1 year from today. And therefore, I think BBI comes in, because BBI can somehow correct the current injustices.
Right.
And be able now to carry everyone on board.
Okay. Senator Maura, do you think we should stake our hopes on the BBI proposals?
Yes, certainly, because we are trying to recalibrate we are trying to recalibrate the country, because we are involved in this issue of saying, how do we have a country that works for us? And these things are historical, I must say.
Yes.
And as Senator Kangata said, it goes back to the Kanu scenario of big tribes by the small tribes. And also Majimbo, which was, that time Majimbo never was not able to support itself, and that's why people came back to the center. And you will find the same argument with Julius Kambarage Nyerere in Tanzania. And he said the problem of having one center is that when you make a mistake there, it reverberates across. But when you have many little centers, then people have an opportunity. And you can see the economic development that has happened across the country. Counties that never had the tarmac, they are now having tarmac, like Tana River. Counties that, for example, I used to go there and you would not find anything happening as much, like Kitui. I went there and I was very happy even to find an industry, and congratulations, Governor Gilu. You go on and on. But what we are also trying to say is that let it be equitable. Don't also, there is a saying that you slow down the donkey you slow down the horse for the donkey to catch up. No, don't do that. Give the donkey its rightful share and let it grow so that it can also contribute. But because there's a lot of potential that is unlocked. Look at Kitui, for example. There's a high Grand Falls that can give us 700 megawatts, of electricity. And every county has something. If you look at Vihiga, there's granite there. You can have a granite industry. There is gold in Ligori. I mean, all of those, if they are well harnessed, then counties can also be sustainable. In fact, they could be giving money to the center. Like the way we have the state-owned enterprise, the Kenya Pipeline.
Yes.
They give back money to the center, to the government.
Yes.
So, but also, the BBI proposal is proposing that we have 35%. I think that's what the latest information I have come across. And so therefore we need also to redefine so that you also don't make counties to be employment bureaus. A lot of this money is going to pay salaries. My own Kiambu County, with a budget of 16.5 billion, has got 8 billion for paying staffers. Now, that is also something we need also to agree, that do not overpopulate, the county register, the HR, role with people who are not giving value for money, so that you balance. And we need prudent financial managers as governors. I mean, like recently I had a visit with Major General Badi in Bukuru, Paruben, and you can see the transformation that he's doing in Nairobi County. And it actually begs the question as to whether governors should be elected or appointed.
Appointed, yes.
Because if you compare him and Sonko, certainly for me, Badi is doing a great job. I wish he was there earlier. But then also the quality of governors that are elected. Look at how the mess we went through with Waitito. He even had to be removed, through an impeachment and also through the ESCC, investigations. So the quality, masses sometimes are also able to elect governors who may not be visionary. And it's good to say that because of the spur of the moment, because of party alliances. But yet, this is a technical job. The work of a governor is actually to go there and dirty their hands and do a good job. And that cannot be gotten in school, by the way, also. That can only be gotten with the kind of pedigree of leaders that are elected, if you look at Chapter 6 of the Constitution. And that is the only way, we are able to cumulatively develop our country. We are not going to develop our country by being cynical. We are not going to be developing our country through tenderpreneurship, where there is no real production other than sharing government money through projects. People have to be visionary. You design a project not to steal from the people, but to actually transform them.
Now, I love the fact that you brought up this economic capabilities of certain counties based on their geography and basically the resources they do have naturally or otherwise. You can even count the human population as part of that resource that can be actually harnessed to ensure that a county stands on itself. One of the editorial letters that has been sent this morning to one of the dailies asserts that at this point, counties should not even be looking to the national government for budgetary allocation. They should have worked in a way that they are able to stand on its own. And that sounds similar to what you're saying right now. Do you agree with that? And what possibly could we learn from this particular situation that will inform how we move forward in terms of revenue generation as opposed to just looking to the allocations every other financial year?
I think one of the things that I must say is that even this revenue formula has reduced fiscal responsibility to only 1%. And that is not right, because it is encouraging counties to over-depend on the center. The Senate and the National Assembly have not been able to resolve the on-source revenue so that you properly demarcate how much money, what kind of taxes counties can actually generate. Because, for example, Kiambu County I come from, the revenue is 3.6 billion from local sources. But we can actually do more. We can actually do more if we unlock the potential. But certainly there are also counties that are not doing very well. And so therefore, they actually need to be given more resources. But that balance must also be, you get more based on how much you collect, so that people are actually incentivized. But currently, you find a situation where counties seem to say, no, we are poor, we cannot tax our people more, we need money from the center, and those who are generating more taxes should get less. I mean, how do you spur economic development with that kind of handout mentality? We must also be willing to agree that in certain instances, when people know that they will get more because of how much they are generating, they will be more attuned to wanting to also dirty their hands to ensure that actually they get more money. And allow me to finally make this comment about leadership. You don't lead people by pointing and telling them where to go. You lead by going to that place and making a case. It's not so much you fail. What is most important is to give it a try so that those who follow you we'll have a higher chance to succeed. Don't postpone your contribution to serve humanity. Pay the worthy price. I'm telling my fellow senators, we've got to make a decision. It may not be the most favorable, but we have to make a decision for this country to move forward.
Right. Now, Senator Kangata, when you hear the sentiments of Honorable Mwaura on the quality of leadership, how would you say that has affected revenue usage at the county level, and what could be done better to ensure that counties are not suffering owing to such basic elements, just how a county is being managed, or the know-how of a certain governor to be able to manage, or in many cases mismanage certain allocations and budgetary requirements?
Yeah, of course, there's a clear correlation between how the county performs and the quality of leadership. You will see a situation where a more competent governor, for instance, the audit questions which are coming even to Public Accounts Committee of the Senate are fewer. But a more incompetent governor will attract an adverse opinion or even a qualified opinion from the auditor. That then means those books, they have been deepened by the auditor as being flawed or even fake. And to that extent, there's a clear correlation between those two things. But how do you remedy that? Of course, those of us who are in that committee, we will recommend prosecutions. We have seen several instances of some governors being taken to court. Of course, we also want more public